Well, you get your beers there.
That's great.
Want to welcome everybody to another episode of After Two Beers. My name is Joel McCloskey, the co-owner, CEO of Four Saints Brewing Company, and with me today, or tonight when you're watching this, is Dr. Jonathan Thill. Jonathan, tell everybody who's watching a little bit about you, what you do, and we'll just go from there.
Awesome. So I'm Dr. Jonathan Thill. I am the co-founder of VentureAsheboro. I am a entrepreneurial advocate that spent 15 years in the community college system. I worked as a dean for continuing education at Montgomery Community College before leaving the system to start a co-working space here in Asheboro. Our first location was on Cox Street, and it went so well that we filled up within less than a year, and so now we're moving to a new location on Dublin Square, filling an old orthopedic practice. So make sure you check out VentureAsheboro on our new location. But that's it.
That's it. We're at the new place right now. We're outside on the patio, mainly because it's a gorgeous day.
Yeah.
The sky was unreal today. So I got to know Jonathan just through a couple different groups, and watching your. I met you through the community college system first.
Yep, you sure did.
That's right. Yeah, met you there first, and when you started Venture, we were talking earlier, drinking our two beers. So, Jonathan, you asked for it, and the Potter's Clay.
Yep, sure did.
Yeah. Are you a hoppy beer guy? Do you like IPAs, or is that?
Yeah, I do. Loved this one, and we've gotten kegs of this one from Venture before.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we've got a kegerator, and this is my favorite to get for the office.
Yeah, Potter's Clay it's a good. That's my go-to. I never would have thought that just a flat-out amber would be my go-to, but it certainly is. I had the Berliner Punch, our new sour, and then the Upper Road. As we were sitting here talking and enjoying these two beers, because it's after two beers, you mentioned your son Remy.
Yeah.
Jackson is a video game player.
Jackson is a video gamer.
So you said that you said that he's taken after you. So were you into video games when you were growing up?
I was, man, and I know there's a lot of people watching, and that I'm going to out myself, but I am a nerd, man. Yeah. So growing up, I played Dungeons and Dragons, and I even played video games to the extent of these games called Mud. There were multi-user dungeons, and so it was basically a text-based open world RPG. And so I would stay up in the middle of the night, and I would light torches as I walked down tunnels in my mind and all this kind of stuff. And I had so much fun. And I think I've imparted that to my son, even though now I don't have time. So
right.
As an adult, I regretfully almost never play video games.
Yeah. I
love it, but the pandemic timeline has given me some opportunity, and PlayStation has a bunch of sales, but so if you're on PlayStation, make sure you get some sales.
So what was doing Dungeons and Dragons?
Yep.
Did you have a character, or did you have multiple characters?
Oh, that's a great, man. So I had Caligar. His name was. I came up with the name and everything.
I love that.
So Caligar was this tank. So he was always like the big buff guy that had swords and shields and stuff instead of like a magic caster or anything like that. And so.
Yeah, magic casters.
Yeah, this is super different. I could go on so long.
You got real judgy about magic casters.
Yeah. So I'm a tank. Obviously I'm a babysit guy, and so when you do role playing, I'm thinking of that's me. I'm kind of role playing in it. So yeah.
Was he a barbarian, or was he? What was he?
He was a barbarian, and in the game that I played, barbarians are super strong, but had a lot of technical weaknesses and stuff. And so I loved it, man. Yeah. I love video games. So Jackson has taken that on. Remy, who is 5 years old, Jackson's 10, Remy, who's 5 years old, watches his older brother play and really wants to be like his older brother. Mm-hmm. And so I think Remy is going to be the pro gamer after Jackson learns it, and then Remy starts 5 years younger. And yeah, man, we're gonna see a bunch of gamers at our house. But yeah,
it's I mean, it's a thing now. The kid won $3 million playing Fortnite,
absolutely,
like that.
And Fortnite's made an hour and a half up the road in Raleigh.
Yep.
And so I think that's really cool to kind of tell our kids. Not only is it something that we can play at home, but it's something accessible in our state. Like you could go check out the headquarters and stuff. And so I think that's on our bucket list is to see the Fortnite. I think it's Epic Games headquarters in Raleigh, and take a tour so the kids can see just how boring it is to make it.
You're going to pull back the veil
a
little bit.
Like, say,
let's take a look at the wizard.
It's just coding. So, but yeah.
That's either going to, they're either going to dive even deeper. Or just be done with it.
Yeah, it's like cooks. Like you finally get a chance to see how bread's made. You're like either going to become a baker, or you're going to say, no, I'll just buy my bread. I'm fine. Now I know, appreciate it, and I'm fine.
Now I know how to proof, and I don't want to.
Yeah.
I have proof that I don't want to do this.
That's right. That's right, man. That's right.
So Dungeons and Dragons was a thing, and a big thing for you. With the video games, Mud, and I remember those text-based games. I remember there was it was high school, and we had the Macs. Like the little gray Macs.
Yeah.
And I remember there was two games. One was Shuffle Puck.
Yeah.
That once we got done with our typing and whatever else we had to do, save your database. I don't use databases, but we'd play Shuffle Puck, and then somebody came in with a disc with one of those text-based games on it, and then that's all everybody wanted to do. And then what we found out was if you typed the right thing, it would open up the not so school friendly version. Yes,
of course. Back in our day, because we're about the same age, there was Leisure Suit Larry. There were these games that you had to take a test before being able to actually launch the game. And they would ask questions. So my parents had a Tandy 1000.
Yeah, Tandy.
Yes. And so we had a Tandy 1000, and they had a game called Leisure Suit Larry, and you'd have to answer questions like, I'll never forget it. Who was the band that had an album with a pair of lips on the cover? And I think it was Rolling Stone. And so I think my mom helped me hack the questions at some point because we didn't have the internet. So my mom helped me hack the questions to get into Leisure Suit Larry, and it was one of those eye-opening moments. I was like, whoa, games are crazy.
Leisure Suit Larry, that whole Sierra games with Leisure Suit Larry, Roger Wilco, Space. He was in Space, and the Manhunter series.
King's Quest.
And that's Rich Powell, the guy that with the labels. He's a Berliner Punch.
Awesome artist.
He worked on Sierra games.
Did he really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so he's actually he's some of his art and characters and things are in different different Sierra games. So yeah, he still has his, I think he still has his name badge where it's his face and then the Sierra logo. And, now when you played those games, did you ever call the hint line the 19? I don't think it was a 900 number, but I was like.
I know what you're talking about. I didn't. I mean, there were periodicals. There was game magazines, and people loved that stuff.
Oh yeah.
So when you were in school, was there a game that you liked that was on par with say a Oregon Trail? I feel like Oregon Trail was one of, and there was maybe Math Munchers or something.
Montezuma's Revenge.
Really?
So Montezuma's Revenge is another one. So that takes me back to elementary school, middle school. So it was the Apple IIe's with the green screens, right? And so it was a lot of blocks. And so Montezuma's Revenge was very much like Super Mario Brothers. You're this little guy, and you had to swing across vines and collect treasure. And so when it was computer time, it was Oregon Trail or Montezuma's Revenge. Those are the only two games that I remember like in school. But then I remember always going to Radio Shack, and there was always that one computer that had the games playing.
Yes.
And I remember Prince of Persia, and I was like, that game. But I was into the Manhunter series. I enjoyed, and then there was a Quest for Camelot. That was like my first one.
Yeah.
And so you played as King Arthur, and that one I loved. But those games took a long time. It was like, switch out disc 1 for disc 5.
Yep.
Disc 5 now disc 3, and you just kept on going back and forth.
Between.
And God forbid if you lose one of those discs, because
absolutely
you just didn't roll up the Radio Shack. Okay, I need disc 4 of Quest for Camelot because it's gone.
You gotta buy them all.
You gotta buy them all.
That's right.
There's no, So the hint lines, that was like it was like $1 or $1.50 a minute.
Yes.
So it was like a 1-900 number, but for computer nerds and playing the games to get those hints.
Yeah.
And those people never talked fast.
Yeah. No. So what is your question?
What part of the game? Could you explain that again? Like, dude, I've got $10 to spend. Like, I worked hard for this money.
That's right.
We need to figure this out fast.
Now, yes, I liked Carmen Sandiego too. Where in the world was Carmen Sandiego, or where in the USA? Mm-hmm. Of course, my parents wanted me to do as many educational games as possible.
Of course.
And you want to? They think you're going to pull out the almanac and search through all of. I'd guess until you get the right answer. Like, okay, so it seems like Phoenix is where they have the hot air balloon festival, or Albuquerque, or whatever. So
the answer is always Phoenix.
Yeah,
it's always Phoenix.
That's right.
Where does this happen? Phoenix.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, you're going to be right eventually.
Right. That's right.
Eventually, right. Phoenix. So, if with Fortnite, do you have any of your old video game systems? Like, do you have like an old NES?
So we don't. We built an emulator system using one of those Raspberry Pis.
Yeah.
So we took an original Mario Brothers cartridge, unscrewed it, and in the guts of it, pulled it out and put in a Raspberry Pi.
Yeah.
And so all of the ports are where you would normally stick it into the Nintendo, and it has like the power and the USB and stuff. And so I downloaded a bunch of emulator games, and so we've been playing that some. But, games were so much harder when we were little. Like, my kids don't know how to lose like we learned how to lose growing up. Like, my kids are like, I thought I was going to get first place. They're like, no, son, you're going to die probably 100 times before you even get past the first stage. But, yeah, those old games, they're so much harder.
They are. No, you're right. Those, you weren't meant to win those games.
No. Absolutely. Nobody was meant to beat Mario. And if you ever heard of somebody that did, you're like, oh my God, I got to see this. Yeah.
And the same with like Contra.
Yeah.
When Contra, So Contra came out, my cousin got it, and him and a friend and I were at his house, and we played through a couple of times because you start with 3 lives.
Yep.
Like, that was it. You got 3 lives, get as far as you can.
That's it.
Then we'll see what happens. And so we played it for about an hour or two just with those 3 lives, and we never got past the first stage. Learning which guns were best. Because you're like, oh, the laser gun's going to be awesome. Like, the laser gun was the worst.
Yeah.
Because you just kept pressing the button. It never
one line.
It just never went out that far. And then another friend came over, and he's like, oh, you guys got Contra. That's awesome. And he waited for his turn, and when the title screen came up, he started pressing buttons, and we were like, nobody paid attention, but I remember him just pressing buttons, and the game started, and it said 30.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what just happened?
Yes.
And he's like, oh, you guys didn't know? Like, you didn't know?
Yeah.
Like, no, like, it's that kind of stuff. Like, when I think back on that, like, the game had just come out, but he knew that.
Yeah.
And so how did the idea of information transfer in 1987 versus now, like, how did he get that? But he knew it, and he put that
absolutely.
And we sat there, and he ran through the entire game. The entire game, we just sat there, just dumbfounded.
Yes.
And then he left.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, man, like, and he didn't tell us the code. Like, he didn't tell us what it was. And so we just sat there, just pressed a bunch.
Oh, of course.
And we were certain that we'd like, oh, I know exactly what he did.
Yeah.
But
before the internet, I don't know how people did that. It was all legend and lore. That's where people were like, I heard about this guy that knew the code that got you to the last level of something. You're like, really? What do you think the code is? Up, down, A, B, start, whatever it was. And so, yeah, there's some people that have memorized that to heart. And I'm guaranteeing some of these people are going to be thinking, I know exactly what code Joel's talking about.
The Konami code is, I mean, it's embedded. It's, if you've ever used it, it's like riding a bike.
Yeah.
Like, and everything else in the world could happen. I forget something that Kristen told me this morning, but if someone just walked up to me randomly on the street, socially distanced, and then just like Konami code, like, oh, there it is.
I got you.
Up, down, left, right, BA, select, start.
That's right. That's right.
And it only worked for one other game, but every Konami game that I got, I was always trying it. Like, what's it going to do? But it worked for Contra and Life Force.
Life Force, yeah. I liked even the Game Genie, and that's one of the things.
Holy cow! I haven't. Wow.
Bringing back the Game Genie, man.
Yeah.
And think about what that taught you about life. So for me, when I used the Game Genie cheat codes, it was almost, it didn't feel so good to win. You would get to the end, or you would have like invincibility. You're like, this isn't so fun anymore. So fun. I want to feel like there's risk. Right? And now as an adult, I don't want any of that risk. I want it to be just like the Game Genie for life. Like, I want my business to be like the Game Genie. I want your business.
What's the code for, we need to find the code.
That's right.
I totally forgot about the Game Genie.
Yes.
Wow. We had our what I don't remember if we owned one or if we rented one.
Yeah.
Because our local video store, had their Nintendo and Genesis areas, and they rented out Game Genies.
Yes, that's awesome.
And when you rented it, you just hoped that the game you were about to play, and you owned at home, had a code in the Game Genie. And the only thing that was worse than it not being there was if there was a Game Genie code for the game that you had, but it was BS.
Oh yeah.
It's like, instead of extra lives or invincibility, it's like you get an extra arm.
Right. Or like 100% extra life or something. Like double life is good, I guess. But yeah.
Now, did you do the? Do you remember the Sega Channel, the subscription service through cable providers?
Yes. Yeah. No, I knew nobody that had any of that kind of stuff. But we definitely tried to do like Nintendo Power magazine and those kind of things.
Nintendo Power. Wow.
Like.
That's just like. Yeah.
Blockbuster. Like my kids, Estella will never know what the concept is of a Blockbuster. And I remember you could rent the system too. So like I didn't have a Sega, and I rented a Sega while I had a Nintendo, and I felt like I was balling. I was like, 2 systems, I could play everything in the world. Wow, bow, 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 bow. And it was, I played X-Men and stuff like that, but. Back in the day, man, Blockbuster was awesome. Those kind of things. So we had Hastings or whatever brand it would be.
We had, it was called Brodax.
Yeah.
And so Brodax was like the main one. Like that was the place. They had the largest selection. They had, and they were the kind of video store, like, and back in the day they would have 2 or 3 of some of the more popular ones, right?
Ooh, yeah.
And then there were these smaller ones that would pop up. And I remember one that was by, was it an IGA? It was in a shop like this big, and you just walked in there, and it just kind of felt dungeony.
Yeah,
They were just like, "Hey, do you happen to have this game?" And like, "Yeah, but it's out. Yeah, but it's out."
Yeah.
Like he never had anything, but it was always, if Rodex doesn't have it, maybe they will.
Yeah.
But going to a couple different places, but I remember standing up at the counter as people brought movies in.
Yeah. And
going, what would you bring back? What'd you bring back?
Yeah.
And just hoping that whatever it was that I was looking for was going to be there.
Oh yeah, and you would ask like the attendant, "Hey, could you check the drop-off box to see if somebody's dropped off this specific game?" Like, I checked it an hour ago. There's no more drop-offs. Like, just look. If you don't mind. Like, I feel like somebody may have dropped it off just before I walked in.
I have a feeling.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that it might have happened while I was here over there. I heard somebody come in.
An NBA Jam may have been what they dropped off.
Oh,
Yep.
Yeah, those video stores for the movies and the games, they were you know, going back to those life lessons of walking in and just that celebratory feel of that thing that you were looking. NBA Jams is here, like,
Yeah.
and just on a 10.
Yeah.
The rest of the night.
Yes.
And for the next 3 days.
Yes.
Because you had it for 3 days.
Yep.
Unless you wanted
Exactly
a late fee.
right.
And then the utter disappointment of it just never being there. But I think more so is that middle part of being able to realize, like, okay, it's not here. And that settling sometimes was okay.
Yeah.
To be like, okay, let me see what else is around. And then, you know, you take something home, and granted, it may be terrible. It may be, you know, it might be Nintendo's Jaws, which is a terrible game. But then you had those bright moments where it's like, oh, wow, I would have never picked this up. It's that idea of going, it wasn't here, but I can still do this. I can still have something.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, with our kids now, and I look at Estella, and like, when she wants to watch something,
she can get it.
It's like that.
Right.
She has the things she wants to watch, and she wants to watch Masha and the Bear. There it is. She wants to watch a precise episode. There it is.
Yep.
Like, it's not turning on DuckTales and hoping it's, you know, this particular episode is like, oh, I've seen this one already.
Yep.
When are they going to play this one again?
And it's really interesting what effect that's going to have, because, you know, it's having the instant access to everything would not have ever brought me to playing a game called something like, I know this is going to sound random, but I remember one of those nights when I couldn't get the game that I wanted, and I played a game called A Boy and His Blob, or something of that sort.
Yes.
And it was great. It was like a platformer, kind of like puzzle type game, maybe Zelda-ish or something.
You fed them jelly beans, right?
I think so.
You fed them different jelly beans and turned into things.
And and that was part of the whole game. And so I never would have selected that on my own, but having that limited options, I was like, let me try something different. And so I've heard that same thing in Netflix and some of these streaming channels, that once you start really defining your tastes, they don't offer you things outside of your tastes. Mm-mm. And so how are you going to find something that you would like but never normally come across?
So here's your hack for Netflix.
Oh, yeah. Let's hear it.
So, you know how you can have multiple accounts?
Yep.
Right? Start a new account just as guest and never use it. And so, like, right now, our Netflix, when you open it up, it is 6-year-old cartoons.
Sure.
Like, here's based on what you previously watched, based off of this, because you watched this, go back to this, and it's all that and The Office, because I watch The Office almost religiously.
Yes.
And so Chris and I were talking about that the other night. And we opened it up, and she's like, I realized what makes it so daunting to find something on our Netflix. And I was like, oh, there's so many choices and we don't know what to do. And then by the time we decide on something, we realize we've just scrolled for an hour and now we're tired.
Right.
And she's like, no, she goes, look at it. And I looked at it, and it was like, we have to get through all this, you know, She-Ra and True and Masha and all this other stuff to find our stuff.
Right.
And so we had a guest account just sitting there, and we never used it. And she's like, I just go to that one. And because you're right, once you start watching things, it starts choosing what to show you.
Right.
It even chooses what that video box cover is going to be. Mm. And so based on the other things you watch,
interesting.
The Office, like for The Office,
interesting.
It will choose whether or not, oh, he's more of a Dwight, so let's put Dwight up.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So every choice you make on Netflix counts.
Yep.
For what you're going to see and how you're going to see it.
Right.
So, which is wild to think about. But yeah, if you start a guest account, it'll treat you like you're brand new and be like, here's all the stuff.
Yeah.
Here's the things. And when you look at it and then you go back to yours, and you're like, that movie's never shown up on my list.
Absolutely.
But it looks really interesting. So let me watch it on my list. So Netflix goes, oh, he does want to see
this kind of stuff. Right.
So
let me ask you, man, did you see Tiger King?
Of course.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's such a guilty pleasure, man. Like, it's some of the best TV, and finding out that it's like documentary is insane.
Yeah.
Some people I know have been to the Myrtle Beach Tiger experience.
The Doc Antle?
Yeah, yes. Doc Antle guy. That's not actually a doctor. No. That's his nickname, Doc. Like, I should have realized that before I took my doctorate. I could have just said, I would like my nickname to be Dr. Jonathan Thill. Just Doc Thill. And so that's what he did.
That's it. Yeah, and it worked. Yeah, it worked.
It works.
Yeah, we watched through it, and it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That cast of characters, like you couldn't. I don't see how anybody could have sat down and like, let me write this out. Let me write these personalities.
No.
And as big as they are, and as outlandish as they are, and all, but believable. I don't see someone sitting down and writing it, but to sit and go, that's a real guy. Like,
yeah.
That's what he does.
That's right.
He dresses like that all the time.
Yes. I mean, it was just from the husbands to everything. It was just such a crazy story. And so for it to come out during the pandemic really kind of was a defining moment, I think, for Netflix and such. And it's crazy that things like that happen. Like, like you said, I never would have thought that a documentary series about a tiger, zookeeper or zoo guy would be what everybody's talking about during the pandemic.
Right.
It's crazy.
And what's really, what I find really cool about that is how, so like going back to TV, we were growing up, like everybody watched TGIF, right? So everybody, every Friday night, 8 o'clock, 75% of America was sitting down and seeing what was going on with the Tanners.
Yep, Full House.
Going on with Family Matters. I don't remember that family's name.
Oh, I don't remember either.
And then Step by Step, and then Perfect Strangers. Like,
yes.
So everybody had these shared experiences.
Winslow's.
Right? There you go, Winslow's. Yes. Yes. And then even like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Like,
yes.
It was always on. It was on Monday nights and on Tuesday. No, it wasn't Monday nights. It was on Tuesday nights. Because then on Wednesday we all came in and we talked about it, right? And so the idea that, like, if we sat Remy and Estella down right now, and say, talk about your favorite shows, what cartoons do you watch? More than likely they're not watching the same cartoons,
absolutely,
because of what's available.
Sure. And
so what I found really neat was that the Tiger King happened, and it's rare to walk across somebody who hasn't heard about it or hasn't watched it to be able to have that shared experience conversation. Yes. And I found that in this time of, you literally could watch everything and anything at any given point, how connected it brought people. So as in this time where things got nuts, everybody could talk about
Tiger King.
Tiger King.
I mean, the Tiger King meme, everybody gets it. Like,
you're right.
It doesn't matter what it is. It's shared language now. It's part of our shared culture.
It's crazy.
It is. So one of the things I did want to talk with you while we were here was a brewery that I heard about, and I wanted to see if you were familiar and what your knowledge was of True Colors in Wilmington.
I've heard of it. I don't think it's open yet.
I don't think so. I don't think so. So my understanding is that it's a brewery built by the guy that's one of the co-founders for Untapped.
Okay. Yeah, that's correct.
And he was in his office in downtown Wilmington and heard about some gang activity that was going on, and a young man passed away or was shot. And so he said, I really want to find out if there's something that I can do. So he wanted to talk to some city councilmen and kind of convene all the gang members. And so the gist of the business is that they hire gang members to brew the beer. Yeah. Have you seen anything about this?
I just read about this like last week.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Recently.
Me too.
So That's about the extent of, of my knowledge of it. But yeah, it's I'm not sure if it's you have to be if it's reformed gang members or
you have to stay in the gang.
You have to stay in the gang,
and you get a $50,000 a year salary. So his his model is he thinks that this is, and it's dynamic. It's provocative, I would say.
Yes.
So for $50,000 per employee, you have to stay in the gang and you maintain your influence in the gang. And as you get more positive, you bring that positivity back to the gang. So he doesn't want you to get a job and then back out of the gang because then that would negate your influence in the gang activities. Dancing with the devil, man.
Yeah.
It's
wow.
Interesting.
Huh. It's. I mean, I'm a cynic. It's certainly got a positive purpose, and I always wonder. With stuff like that. Sometimes I wonder, like, how much this is being done for a marketing purpose, for that publicity piece.
Yes.
And it comes down to it. If the product's good and the company is, the company is being run ethically by everybody who's involved.
Yeah.
I mean, so be it. But yeah, a little bit of dancing with the devil. I could see how that would some potential problems, and I'm sure that he's had to have thought about that, and I'm sure the city council people had thought about that, and the customers that eventually go in there will have to think about that.
Yeah. Oh. Bird. We are outside. This is nature.
It's like feels like he's caught me here, and there's. Sorry, yeah, it's just a bird that's flying around the
little chickadee. Oh, there he goes.
It's just a little confused about where he should be.
Yeah.
But I was just, what is that song? But so I just read about. So that's the. So I now know more of it because we're talking with you. But what's your take on it?
So I'm in the same boat. So the owner is a affluent businessman. Mm-hmm. That is putting all of his marketing around gang members that are positive story models, and their marketing, like they have videos, and some of their marketing is two gang members sit down and talk about one guy killed the other guy's best friend. They were in alternate gangs, and how the brewery brought them together. And so he says that the owner says that this only works if we scale to a national brand. So if we don't scale to a national brand within 2 to 3 years, this whole thing's over. Like, we're going to shut it down. And so that's the business model with the $50,000 an employee and all this other stuff. It's just one of those like out there concepts.
Yeah, Untapped is just because they as a company they bought another beer app called Next Glass.
I saw that. It was recent.
So they bought that and incorporated, they brought those technologies together. And then they went and bought Beer Advocate, which the Beer Advocate name and brand for the beer world was like, for the long time, that was it. Like beeradvocate.com, that's where you went to learn about all the beers in the world. And they have some really intense message boards where people really get into and talk about the beer. Some at a snobby level, some at a very precise level.
Sure.
Just about the beer itself, and so they bought that brand and everything that came with it, and so they're basically bringing in all of the beer rating system platforms together, mm-hmm. and then they just got there was a company that invested in them that invest in a lot of other similar types of things. Which I think then spurred on this, like that's who the guy is. Like he's not one of the. I don't think he's one of the original Untapped people, but he's part of this group. And then
got it.
And so now I think he's like, well, beer, and I agree with the thought, the concept as a whole, that, and not politically. So don't anybody out there take it this way, but that beer is democratic.
Sure.
And, and the idea that a Potter's, if we have excruciatingly different mindsets on politics or religion, or
Sure.
we come from polar opposite ends of the tracks, or all this other or sides of the track things. That if you sit down and we're each drinking a Four Saints beer,
Yep.
we have this thing in common.
Yes.
And we have this opportunity to sit. There's this connection. So I'm going to ask you about why did you choose that one? You ask me what did I choose about this one, and all that other stuff goes out the window.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite stories from when we were. It was a fall festival. We were just getting the brewery. We were getting it framed out, so we had the frame for the bar. Mm-hmm. And we were allowed to, sample out beer and this kind of stuff. And so we were sampling out beer, and we had the skeleton bar sitting there. So we set up some bar stools so people could feel like they were sitting at the bar, and we were just giving out samples. And there was an older gentleman, just kind of a crisp button-down shirt. Sure. And then there was a younger kid with, just baggy jeans. Like, I mean, you take your stereotypes and the way those stereotypes look. Boom, boom, they were right there. And they sat there, these two people who looked like they're from completely opposite worlds, sat and they were drinking beer, and they were talking with each other about the beer they were drinking, but then beer as a whole, and comparing notes for have you tried this, did you like that? And, and at one, the younger kid had mentioned something to the other guy, that he was currently looking for. It just came up in casual conversation, looking for a job, and the guy reached in, pulled out a card, and said, "Hey, give me a call Monday. Maybe we'll see if we can work something out." He walked, and the kid was like, "That's awesome." And he walked out, and the older guy was just sitting there, and he's just shaking his head. And I just happened to be right there, and I said, "Is everything okay?" He's like, "Yeah, he just, I would have never talked to that guy in a million years.
Yeah,
he doesn't look like somebody I would talk to. He doesn't talk like anybody I talk to." He goes, "All these things would have told me." Me and him, we're not the same. Yeah. He goes, we just had a really good conversation, and hopefully I'll be able to help him out with a job on Monday.
Sure.
And the guy was just like, "That's really awesome." He walked out, and like for me, it was a defining moment because that was that whole idea. Beer is democratic; it brings everybody together. You don't have to, everybody understands beer.
Yeah, well, and at the same time, Joel, I kind of push back. I think a lot of businesses sell beer. I think your differentiator is not the beer. Like, you make great beer. I love your beer. That's not it. I think that definitely creates the topic of conversation, creates the reason to come. Mm-hmm. But I think it's that I think of all the places that sell beer but don't have that same vibe, that don't have that same like culture, that when you come in, you're encouraged to sit down with everybody. Yeah. And I've felt that every time I've come into your bar, and every time I talk to you about this, you always kind of get funny, but I'm serious, man. Like, there are great people that come to your brewery, and I make friends. I will never forget the conversation I had when I met Bill Batten. Yeah. Bill Batten was a great, welcoming soul in Asheboro, and was sitting at your bar, and I sat down while I was trying to do my dissertation stuff, and we commiserated over trying to get work done in a busy place, and he gave me his card, and I had no idea how good of a person, but also successful of a business owner Bill Batten was. And so I think that's one of those things that you guys do well. And so I've gone back to your Kickstarter.
Kickstarter. Yeah.
I wasn't living in Asheboro when you guys kickstarted off. And so I watched the video, and it still is true, man. Yeah. Like you guys said in that video, we're not here trying to become the next big national brand. We're here to brew great beer for great people in Asheboro. And anyways, man, I'm just glad I had the chance to say this so other people can see me say this to you, and how uncomfortable you get every time I compliment you and talk about stuff like that. But
I appreciate that, and that's what we that's always what we wanted to create. Because you're absolutely right. There's plenty of places to get beer, and everybody finds that place where they are comfortable getting beer, and that it's their cheers, and that was one. It is, and we think about like European culture. The local. Every little town, every area has got their local. And that's where you it's your third place. You go and you have a drink and you sit down and you talk with Jonathan, and Jonathan's going to be there, and you might talk about the same thing every single week at varying degrees, but it's that level of comfortableness.
Right.
There's safety. That's for a long time I wondered why Estella always wanted to come back and watch the same, not just the same cartoon, the same episodes.
Yeah.
Why the same episode over and over and over again? And I wish I could remember who it was. They're like, she does that because it's safe.
Yeah.
She knows the story. She knows what's going to happen. She knows what character is going to show up. She knows where the funny parts are. She knows where the scary parts are. She knows where all that is. It is if she feels safe.
Yep.
In a world, especially for a 4, 5, 6-year-old, that is nuts.
Absolutely.
And no control over anything. And every day she's being told to do something or be something, or wanting to do this but having to go do that. It's a sense of control. It's a sense of safety.
Yep.
And it's a sense of just comfort. Like I know this.
Yep.
And I was like, oh. And then when I sat back and went, that's exactly why I watched The Office 6 times through.
There you go.
But that's to your point that that's what I wanted. Yeah, that's what Four Saints has become for some people, some groups, and I love that. And I feel that what you're creating with VentureAsheboro, you've got that as well with with guys like with Jalen. He's got this business that he wants to put out there, and you offered an opportunity to say, let's do this, and we're going to work through it together, and watching that grow and watching that become from an idea into action into a model, right, and what you're doing there, and with entrepreneurs, regardless of how small or how many, and then coming to a place like this and having, I think you said 20 offices,
11,000 square feet.
I mean how that might, and not what might, how that will transform Asheboro and the community, and to for people to come in and start their thing and stay with you for as long as they can, until there's that point where it's like,
I gotta grow.
I gotta grow. I gotta, and my wings are ready. I gotta fly.
Right.
And and so you're doing that, and it's pretty fantastic. And so
I got to tell you, man, it fills my heart for you to say that, because that has been my goal too. Like, in many regards, I see and have modeled our business after an office version of Four Saints, like where it's a convener of people, where it's a place where people can feel that comfortable, confident, safe is where entrepreneurs have to feel. So like when you were describing Estella, I was like, this is a perfect analogy for how an entrepreneur's new business owner is also feeling about life. Mm-hmm. Like I want to spend time doing my craft, but I really need to set up my taxes, and I really need to set up all this other stuff. And so there's an idea that I've not quite been able to transform here yet, but with this new space, I'm very optimistic. In culinary world, I love cooking shows. Yeah. So culinary world, there's a term called mise en place, where you have everything in its place. And so it's basically the term for when you dice all of your onions and get them in the bowl. And so like a cooking show has everything prepped.
Right.
That's the mise en place of it. So finding mise en place for business. So how can I help people have everything right there? So when it's time to pull the trigger for this, it's already ready for you to go. Like if you need a tax person, they're already kind of working here. Or if you need to work with a bank or something like that. And so the vision really is this ecosystem that we're all kind of in this together, and that we're all kind of fighting isolation, and we're all trying to fight what is the next best step together, while we have these passions that are very specific to our industry. Mm-hmm. And how do you kind of share that load together? Rural doesn't really have this. No. Like in Greensboro, there's 3 or 4 of them.
Right.
Same thing in Winston. There's some really cool, like hip places in our urban areas, but I was really passionate about Asheboro because this is not only where I live, but I think this is where people like you and I are going to be moving in the future. So like there's going to be more of these millennial de-urbanization. People are going to come out of Greensboro, find places like Four Saints, and find communities like ours that are going to say, you know what, I can have this same really cool vibe that I had in Greensboro for less money, more land, safer security, And in terms of pandemic, I would much rather live here.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And it's I don't think it's an if it happens.
Right.
It's when it happens.
Right.
And so, I think we're gonna.
I feel seen today, guys. I finally feel seen.
So, Jonathan, thank you for spending some time with me and the conversation. Things to think about, things to laugh about, things to connect with. I really appreciate it. So, if you're watching this, VentureAsheboro, you can find them on, it's Venture Ecosystems on Instagram. Is that
Asheboro and Ecosystems?
Okay.
So Ecosystems is our nonprofit. We have a nonprofit dedicated to helping people through educational opportunities and such. And then Venture Asheboro is our facility. But so Venture Asheboro is probably the way to go.
So VentureAsheboro, Facebook, Instagram, keep up with them, especially as they're doing this expansion. If this is something you're interested in, get in touch with Jonathan. This was After Two Beers. As always, a wonderful conversation, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Joel.
All right.
Y'all have a great night.